And we are live. Thank you very much, folks, for joining. I'm Adam Classfeld. You're watching All Rise News, a Substack Live with former FBI Assistant Director of Counterintelligence Frank Figliuzzi. And we're here to talk about the bombshell report from MSNBC, Carol Leonnig, and Ken Delanian about the $50,000 in a kava back in cash to the border czar, Tom Homan, before he was border czar back in September of last year, and the follow-up reporting from the New York Times that this has a connection to a counterintelligence investigation. Now, since that is directly in your bailiwick, Frank, I want to get your insights. When you saw the New York Times reporting a counterintelligence tie to this, what went through your mind?
Yeah, fascinating. So first, Adam, thank you for having me on. This is our first time live on Substack, and I appreciate that. Secondly, for all those joining us, thanks for doing that on relatively short notice. This live Substack is brought to you by Cava Fresh Salad Shops. Cava for the fresh salad near you. And maybe Tom was mistaken. Maybe it was actually just green salad greens and not $50,000 in cash. I can see where the confusion would come in. Yeah. So first, let's chronologically address this. You got the MSNBC story with wow, what a coup for MSNBC to get Carol Leonnig from the Washington Post, number one, just a stellar track record of journalism, and along with Ken Delanian, who's been with them for years. Okay. That's the first story. And what we understand from NBC is that they actually laid eyes on a document, multiple sources. So I want to just briefly tell folks, since I've spent 8 years with NBC and MSNBC News, I've got to tell you how impressed I have been with their vetting standards, their reporting standards. It's quite serious. And you don't get to report things unless there are multiple sources, layers of vetting. Something like this, as explosive as this, would have gone all the way up the chain at MSNBC to get the green light to publish it on a weekend, Saturday. They were probably in a race with maybe the New York Times, who seemed next to come out with their own related supporting story. So I want to get people square on that. This is not some deep state, let's screw Tom Homan on a Saturday afternoon. That's not how that works at a major media organization. Number two, I want to get people square on how it works at the FBI, because I spent 25 years there. And I know what it's like to run an undercover operation. I've been there. I've done it. And I've run major corruption cases. You don't just willy-nilly decide for grins that you're going to try to pay $50,000 in cash in a kava paper bag, salad bag, to someone who's close to a presidential candidate and might become the border czar. The predication required for a full-blown undercover operation goes all the way to DOJ if you're going to make a payment like that, right? And what are we learning from both MSNBC and now the New York Times? That the predication was there, that a subject of another unrelated investigation, and here comes the counterintel thing from New York Times, we'll talk about that in a second, said what? Hey, Homan, and by the way, I've seen this throughout my career. People get jammed up and they point to somebody else and go, you think you got me? How about this guy over here? And okay, what do you got? What the allegation is that Homan was saying, I will take money to help you, business people, with contracts, if I become the border czar. That's I'm paraphrasing, but that's the reporting. Okay, that is, if you have a believable subject, and boy, somebody jammed up, maybe even in a proffer agreement. We don't know. Maybe his lawyer said, my guy's got something for you, and they vetted it. And they said, yeah, we got to do this. We got to test it. They get approval. They go, they make a payment. It's recorded according to NBC, and they pay him 50 grand in cash. Now, very important to say that Tom Homan went on with Laura Ingraham on Fox News and said, and the White House has said, I never Well, the White House has said he never took cash. He never took the.
I was about to correct that because on Fox News on Laura Ingraham there was a very carefully worded statement that did not go to the level of a denial. But continue. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. I'm a wordsmith. I analyze words. They're important, right? And you're
Yeah,
right. If you need to listen to that Laura Ingraham thing about twice before you realize he's not denying he took the cash. He's saying
right.
he did not. He's saying something like, "I didn't do anything criminal,"
Correct.
which gets toward the larger question of, okay, why wasn't he charged? This happened under the Biden administration, allegedly, I think December or September
September.
2024, before Trump wins and comes on board, and importantly, before Homan, of course, is named a border czar. So the legal beagles will tell you, hey, this does become problematic because you want to kind of see, there's a quid pro quo, and we don't have the quo. So we kind of have to wait until he gets named, and then he does an official act in return for the monies received.
Right.
And then, of course, we know the Trump administration ultimately, just recently, closes it. Then I'm fascinated, Adam, by whether or not someone tipped Homan off. Hey, you asshole, do you understand that you took 50 grand from FBI agents, you stupid idiot? And tipping, by the way, tipping him off, if somebody did that in the administration, that is chargeable. Absolutely. And then, the question of whether Homan is chargeable. Yeah, I mean, you always prefer to have a closed transaction. Sure, close the loop. But it's still chargeable, not necessarily as a bribe, but rather as some kind of fraud. That's according to my trusted legal experts. So it's chargeable if you want to. But the counter intel thing, okay, that's a long way of getting to your question. New York Times was the first to come out and say, hey, that other guy, that other subject that pointed to Homan, that was a counterintelligence case. Wow. Okay, let's refresh. What does counterintelligence mean? Counterintelligence is identifying and defeating the efforts of foreign intelligence services operating against U.S. interests for the FBI, particularly inside the United States. So you're telling me, New York Times, that the FBI had an active counterintel case against somebody, maybe in Texas. I don't know. We're hearing this happened in Texas, where at least the payment. And then here comes the U.S. Attorney's Office saying to DOJ, oh my God, we need help with this. So this is all, again, late in the fall of last year. What could that mean? What could a counterintelligence case mean where somebody is close enough to know that Homan is soliciting bribes, allegedly? Wow. The imagination runs wild. But when you're talking about contracting, the border, is it connected at all? It's got to be connected somehow to contractors. Are foreign intel services penetrating defense contractors, the private prison industry, where all of these migrants and detainees may and will end up? What were these agents posing as? If we were to learn more about what the nature of the undercover legend was for these agents, we would know a lot more, perhaps, about the counter intel case. Because if, for example, the FBI was looking at whether a foreign power has somehow gotten in the middle of prison contracts or migration services, or wants a pipeline of their citizens from some foreign country coming in, it's almost dangerous to engage in this conjecture, but boy, did it get my attention that the origin of this case was a counter intel investigation.
And a couple of reactions to some of what you said. For first off, the fact that this case spawned from a separate counterintelligence investigation that seems to undermine the whole claim. Oh, this is entirely politicized by the Biden DOJ, which, by the way, didn't leak this information. They preserved the integrity of the investigation during an election season. But this spawned from another investigation. I haven't seen any reporting as to whether or not that separate investigation is still open. As Congress is pursuing information like, for example, the recording, the tape of this handoff, should they be trying to get at the bottom of what happened to that case, a suspected threat against the United States that drew a counterintelligence investigation? Should they be demanding more information about that?
Yeah, great question. First of all, we need to be demanding a lot, and we need to be contacting our elected lawmakers in Congress to say, look, just as I called you and wrote you about the Epstein files and you need to release them, and boy, do you ever, I'm now communicating with you, my elected official, to tell you that you better demand evidence of what Homan did because you're complicit in this alleged corruption if you don't want to expose it. That's how this is going to go. And we need to know part and parcel of that, whether a counterintelligence case might have been compromised because you're now out there claiming that none of this happened. We've got a complete mess. So who would you be contacting besides your obviously, localized lawmakers for your Congress members? House and Senate Intelligence Committee, which typically are honest brokers. These are the folks who see all of the classified and understand the threats. Get a hold of House and Senate Intelligence Committees and say, hey, New York Times says this was a counterintel case to start. What the hell? Don't you have equities in this? Number two, Judiciary, Homeland Security, right? This is all about Tom Homan, which is all about Homeland Security. We need hearings. And here's the beauty of the fact that the Trump administration closed this case, Adam. They can't, now that it's closed, they can't come out and say, hey, this is a sensitive, ongoing undercover operation. We can't talk about it. Au contraire, you closed it. Don't tell me that it's ongoing and sensitive. You just said it was bullshit. So you better come out with it. And the undercover FBI agents who were doing their job, who, by the way, what talent, we're digressing, but you want to talk about talent. Undercover FBI agents who work corruption cases, holy cow, they're good. They're national assets. And, you're worried about exposing them? You could blur their faces on the video. Did you fire them? Did the FBI fire them for doing their job? Because they're firing other agents for doing their job. Where are they? You could produce them. You could put them in behind closed doors in Congress so they're not exposed. Let's see the recording. Let's get it out. And by the way, that money that's paid by the FBI in undercover operations to people who are stupid enough to take cash in a bag, that's our money. That's my taxpayer money and yours. I want it back. Where is it? Did he claim taxes? Did he claim it on his income tax? Of course he did not. What is he going to put? Bribe? 50,000?
So you anticipated my next question, Frank. So this is our taxpayer money that Tom Homan allegedly received in a paper bag from Kava. You get $50,000 in this paper bag. You put it in the bank. Is that taxable income?
Yes. Yes, of course. But who lists that? Who lists that as criminal income? What? Maybe, but you know what? We're joking about this in a sense, but if he has an excuse, I want to give him his due, right? If he has a valid excuse, like, well, no, it wasn't a bribe. I was getting paid for consulting, which, by the way, is a very common story. Good. So it was a legit consulting fee in a bag. Okay. Did you claim that on your income tax? Let's talk to your accountant. So he's jammed up on this, man. He's jammed up either which way he goes.
So this is, because right now what we're talking about are the questions that Congress can ask. What did he do with this income? This is $50,000. He accepted it in a bag. So that has tax implications. So what avenues has Congress, should they exhaust? You mentioned people can call their elected representatives, say, we want answers. We want to see the tape. We want to see the bank ledgers. We want to see the testimony of the undercover agents. What avenues of investigation does Congress have at their disposal to get at these answers? Because let's say, as Tom Homan said on Laura Ingram's show last night, I did nothing criminal, which is an interesting non-denial denial because it seems to suggest a legal argument that the definition of bribery has been so degraded that accepting $50,000 in a kava bag in exchange for an official act that he may not have executed may not be bribery under the McDonnell precedent, which we can go deep in the weeds here for legals here, but let's leave it at that. But tax is another matter. What avenues of investigation, other than the ones that we've been describing right now, should Congress be thinking about?
Yeah, it's really so we've learned, of course, that over the years, sadly, with Trump, that it's really hard to get tax information, and particularly out of Trump's IRS. But the question needs to be asked, and the most likely venue for that happening would indeed be congressional hearings. I also will tell you, and you may have seen this, that there's at least one or two organizations, private watchdog type organizations, that have already filed FOIA for the undercover recording. That needs to happen as well. And like I said, the beauty of the disturbing fact that the Trump administration closed the Homan investigation is that they can't claim under FOIA, an exception for complying with FOIA is, hey, ongoing sensitive operation. Nope, you closed it. Sorry. So FOIA, all media organizations should be filing FOIA right now for the undercover. And how does that work? So again, typically you get your undercover agents, they start recording in a preamble, it's called, before they go make contact with the target. So you're going to see a recording likely of agents literally counting out the money to each other. That's going to be on tape, on film, to show everybody, including a court someday, this is 50 grand in cash and we have it in our possession. And you'll hear agents' voices. This is, again, common experience. I'm special agent so-and-so with my friend Joe here. We're making an undercover payment today. Here's the $50,000. Here's the guy we're meeting with, where we're going, today's date, blah, blah, blah. Then the next thing you'll see is the transaction. You'll actually see them traveling to the location, likely, and then you'll hear and or see through very sensitive recording methods. There's likely even other agents in the vicinity helping to record and surveil, and you'll hear the conversation. And that all of that is supposed to have been recorded, according to MSNBC, who says they saw a government document reflecting that it was recorded and that the payment happened. We should be getting our hands at a minimum at the written transcript, because then what happens is the undercover agents go back to the office and their recording is transcribed.
And the fact that we both mentioned the non-denial denial from Tom Homan on Fox News. At the same time, you also had the actual denial coming from Caroline Leavitt is to the press corps claiming, oh, he didn't accept it. It reminds me of the Trump denial of the existence of the letter for the Epstein birthday book. The letter exists. It becomes public after the estate releases it to Congress. And I guess where I'm getting at here is there any disincentive for the White House press secretary to go out and claim something that doesn't exist when there is a record of it?
This gets to a much larger question, which is the level of official cover up and lies in a Trump administration, and whether or not there will be ever accountability for this. And that, while I fully, and we're digressing, but I fully anticipate that come the end of his administration, Trump is going to do a blanket pardon of everybody in his administration, and I'm sure Caroline will be a part of that. That's my opinion. But there needs to be, beyond that, there needs to be accountability in the form of hearings. We need to understand that pardoning criminal acts that are official government, a part of official government work, is lying. That can't be tolerated. And so we got to get beyond the pardons here. But people need to understand in the Trump administration, when they wake up every morning and have to spill out what could be absolute lies to the American public, that there needs to be accountability for that. And that's a real concern of mine, is the lack of accountability. We have Megyn Kelly, former Fox, now on her own with a popular show on radio, saying we don't care about the Homan case. Literally, quote,
Right.
we don't care. You don't care about what? Corruption at the highest levels? She's a bright woman, lawyer. You don't understand the predication necessary to do a payment like this? You don't care. Wow.
Right. I mean, understand the predication. I think that's very generous. It seems that she's someone who would fully understand the predication, has just decided, if it's my team, it doesn't matter. It's a very sad reflection of our politics, that someone would say in all capital letters, I believe, we don't care. Block caps. We do not care about that $50,000 in a bag. And she has no interest in discovering the answers. Called him, I believe, a national treasure. So you mentioned the possibility of blanket pardons. The reason that would be necessary, I understand, would be that even in this particular case, the statute of limitations would extend beyond Trump's term. Isn't that correct?
It would, but it's a federal crime within his pardon of powers, right?
Right.
So doesn't matter. He could pardon them tomorrow if he wants to. And then, people have asked me on social media, all right, so what other, you say this is possibly chargeable, Frank. What else? How could this happen? Well, this allegedly happened in Texas. Sadly, ordinarily on a normal planet, we'd be talking about state charges for bribery or corruption. But it's not going to happen in the state of Texas, my friend. That's not going to happen. Should the state of Texas be outraged that an alleged bribe occurred on their soil, or attempt at a bribe? Yes. Are they going to address it with their state attorney general, their governor? Absolutely not.
And one of the defenses, one of the ways that this is being characterized in right-wing media, is that this was supposedly entrapment, they say, from the Biden Justice Department. Given everything that we know that's public, why doesn't that hold water?
Well, so first, I say this, since we can't get sense into people's heads. Good. That's why we should see the goddamn recording. Yeah, okay. So get it out. Let's hear if it's entrapment. Let's hear the conversation, right? If the conversation, and by the way, FBI undercover agents are highly trained on avoiding entrapment conversation. You've got to show a predisposition. That's a legal word that's used in undercover work, where the lawyers, and again, layers of review, this thing, and let's see that. One of the things Congress should ask for is, I want to see the chain of legal review that occurred before you went hands-on with Homan on a payment. And I will tell you, based on just my experience, no particular inside information on this case, that the number of lawyers who have to touch this and sign off on it before it happens is almost ridiculous. And so, you don't do this in a hurry. It
Right.
goes all the way through headquarters, legal counsel division, over to across the street to DOJ. The U.S. attorney is fly specking it. They're scripting out the undercover conversation, right? But let's hear it. If you think it's a deep state sting, let's see the layers of review. Let's see the predication that got you there. And let's listen to the conversation, or at least read the transcript. And if the transcript says something like, Tom, I know how much you enjoy kava salad, and we're going to give you here this special new spicy hummus lamb salad at kava because we think you love it. And if you take it from us, we've got more salad for you. Then I'll be the first one to say that's not a legit undercover transaction. That's bad, right?
Mm.
But if it says, if the conversation is, Tom, we understand you're interested in kind of a mutually beneficial thing, and if you become, do you think, Tom, you're going to become the board czar? Yes. Do you think you might help us and we could make this worth your while? Like, here's an example of some cash that's going to be good for you and good for us, and here you take it. And he walks away. That's a dirty conversation, and it's good, right?
Mhm.
So, yeah, to those detractors who say this was all about trying to sting some guy that you don't like, gee, where have we heard that before? I say, good, bring it on. That's why
Right.
we need to see it.
And isn't there a contradiction in terms and the talking points there? On the one hand, you have Caroline Levitt saying he didn't take it. Get your facts straight. That was her line to the reporter. Get your facts straight. He didn't take $50,000 in a bag, and also he was entrapped in a sting. How do those two add up?
It didn't happen, but if it did, he was entrapped. So, you know, I I can't remember taking 50 grand in a paper bag, but who does that? But they speak with forked tongue, Adam, and they can't have it both ways. And I'm going to defer. Let's take Caroline Levitt out of this picture. And as we've talked about, let's talk about Tom Homan's own words on Fox News with Laura Ingraham, where he danced. He danced. He said, I didn't do anything criminal. And you can see Laura Ingraham is stone faced at this point, right? He
Correct.
probably wants him to say, I don't know what you're talking about. This never happened. I didn't take any cash. But he's responding in a way that causes her to just go blank, like, uh-oh. So we need to hear from him. And every time he's on TV, boy, does he love TV. Every time he's on an interview, the first question out of any reporter's mouth should be, Tom, where's that cash? Did you take the cash? Where is it? Can we have it back? It's taxpayer money. Thanks.
Right. Because that was one question Laura Ingraham did not ask him. Did you take the money? And if you look at her question, I encourage folks who are watching now to look at that interview in full. It's a remarkable interview because she mentions that the reporting is that he took the $50,000 in cash in a bag to promise government contracts. And his response is there is nothing criminal and that they're trying to take me down. And there is no comment whatsoever on the underlying reporting. He doesn't dispute it. He doesn't deny it in the least. And we've been hashing out with Frank's expertise as someone who's a former assistant director for counterintelligence for the FBI of where Congress should be looking next. And Frank, if you could just say once again, you had encouraged folks who were watching to call their representatives. If they're making those calls, what should they be demanding? What kind of investigation should they be demanding?
Yeah, couple of things. So, in addition to calling as a constituent of your representative in your district or your senator, I also encourage you to go online. Don't forget that the specific oversight committees, because your Congress member might not be on a pertinent oversight committee, but go ahead and contact anyway. But each of the oversight committees has their own general phone number, and boy, do they record the calls and the emails. By that, I mean document, and it means something to them. So, what oversight committees should you go online and check their general number for? And by the way, usually on oversight committees, there's a number for the Democrat side of that committee and for the Republican, and then there's a general number. Go for it, because this is Tom Homan in border issues. Go to Homeland Security Committee, and contact them. Go to, because this allegedly started with a counterintel case, go to House and Senate Intelligence Committees. Encourage you to go to Judiciary as well and lodge a statement that you want them to get to the bottom of the alleged $50,000 payment to border czar Tom Homan. You want to know what happened to the money, and you want a transcript made public of the closed investigation undercover transaction.
Thank you very much, Frank Figliuzzi, for joining us. And folks who have been watching this, you've been watching All Rise News, make sure to subscribe to our respective Substacks on the top left of your screen. If you've missed any part of our conversation, I will be publishing this later on, so make sure you're an All Rise News subscriber to get the full part of the conversation that you may have missed a little bit earlier, and we'll stay on this story. Thank you once again, Frank, and looking forward to the next time talking.
Yeah, anytime. It was an important conversation, and thanks to everybody who joined. I'll see you over on Substack, and the Frank Figliuzzi is my account.
Thank you very much. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.